Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Talking Politics here at the Hindu with me, Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news that's making the headlines in domestic politics. Politics of the very traditional kind had taken a bit of a backseat in the last 2 months as India battled through the ravages of the massive second wave of COVID 19 that had hit the country. While state governments and the centre struggled to provide medical aid to various states which had seen massive cases, traditional politics, politics of a very typical kind, had seemed to be taking a backseat. Well, not anymore, if the events of last week are to be seen. First, we had the much heralded joining of the BJP by former Union Minister Jitin Prasada, whose Brahmin identity, it was being said, would do much to address some of the bad blood that had been seen to be cropping between BJP supporters of Brahmin and Rajput communities under Yogi Adityanath, who, it was being said, identified too closely with Rajput interests at the cost of the Brahmins. This was being seen as an attempt by the BJP High Command to address some of the issues and resentments cropping up in the Brahmin community in the run up to the 2022 assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh. Scarcely had the excitement of this particular joining, a high profile one at that, died down, that Mukul Roy, who had joined the BJP in the run up to the Lok Sabha elections of 2019 and had been seen as being instrumental in the party getting 18 Lok Sabha seats, an unprecedented number in West Bengal in that election, switched camps and went back to his mothership, which was the Trinamool Congress, to the waiting welcome that he got from West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. BJP sources said that Mr. Roy was upset at being sidelined in favor of newcomers into the party like Shubhendu Adhikari, and also his sidelining by the old guard as well. He felt that during these assembly elections, his advice was not taken on board. He was forced to contest an election, which he won, and therefore he felt it was better to go back to the Trinamool Congress, which he thought could better protect his interests. Well, all of these joinings, etc., would give us the feeling that everything in Indian politics was back at an even keel since before the second wave had hit. People were crossing over, Ayaram, Gayaram, caste identity, how to woo particular communities, etc., was again being talked about rather than oxygen supply, remdesivir, and other medications used during the second wave, and which grabbed so much of the headlines in the last 2 months. But other events, if you look at other events that took place in the same week, the story points to a slightly different picture. What are these events that signal a slightly different polity, a post COVID polity for India in the coming days? In my view, two sets of meetings. One, that poll strategist Prashant Kishore had with Nationalist Congress Party President Sharad Pawar in Mumbai, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's week-long stock-taking exercise with his cabinet colleagues, with his party colleagues, national general secretaries and Morcha chiefs in the BJP, and almost daily meetings with party president JP Nadda and Home Minister Amit Shah point to two different kinds of moves happening in the treasury and the opposition side of Indian politics. Let's first go to the meeting in Mumbai. Poll strategist Prashant Kishore, who said he would be vacating the poll strategy space after after Trinamool Congress's resounding victory in the West Bengal Assembly elections, made news this week, landed up in Mumbai, and met with NCP chief Sharad Pawar. Now, Mr. Prashant Kishore had also handled the Shiv Sena's account in the run-up to the assembly elections in 2019. So his being in Mumbai was not such a rare thing, but the meeting with Sharad Pawar certainly made news because it is being seen as an attempt to rally the regional Kshatrabs, the regional strong leaders, into forming a united front to challenge the BJP, because in election after election, it is being seen that it is a strong regional leader with a very strong message, voice, and agenda, who are able to give a response to the BJP's very formidable election machinery. How far this process will go, we are yet to see. But for me, it is an exciting sort of development in what had seemed like a monoculture that was continuing in Indian politics, and that of the BJP's hegemony over domestic politics. The second set of events, I would call them a set of events and not one event, is the week-long stock-taking exercise that Prime Minister Narendra Modi undertook. He met in groups of twos and threes, his own cabinet colleagues, asked them to bring presentations of the work that they had done in the last few months, where they have reached in terms of some of the projects that had been, some prestigious projects that were being pushed through their respective ministries, and governance issues, how processes were being taken forward, etc., etc. He also met on the evenings of the 2 day stock taking mission meeting that BJP President JP Nadda had held. He had met Prime Minister Narendra Modi, hosted the Morcha chiefs of BJP and the national general secretaries of the party on successive evenings for dinner. And according to sources, there was a lot of soul searching, a lot of very deep questions that were asked about what work was done by the party during COVID, what were the difficulties, where were the bottlenecks, etc., etc., and searching questions about the distance that was being seen between the BJP and the governments run by the party in various states during the second wave. A lot of resentment has been read on the ground against the BJP and governments led by it in its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic second wave compared to other political parties. These are all meetings that were done by Prime Minister Modi. He also met UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and urged him to take other people along and work towards bridging this gap between himself and his colleagues. Now, what do these stock taking meetings mean in a very real sense? In the very real sense, it means that while identity politics is extremely important in the scheme of things in terms of fighting elections in India, BJP had always pushed for a governance agenda. Now, that agenda or that image of being a party of governance, of providing vikas, having this huge constituency of labhartis or beneficiaries of welfare programs of BJP-led governments, especially the Narendra Modi-led government, in terms of free gas connections and Awas Yojana, etc., etc., that was in very real danger. That image was in very real danger of being eroded, and that kind of a feedback had reached the central leadership, especially Prime Minister Modi, and he seems to be trying to hit a reset button on trying to arrest this particular perception taking root so strongly that it will provide an electoral challenge of its own to the BJP in the upcoming assembly elections and later in 2024. How all these issues pan out, of course, is up to the future. But these are the two strands, I thought, apart from the immediate big announcement developments, political developments like Jitin Prasada joining the BJP and Mukul Roy returning to the Trinamool Congress, which I thought would develop into repeated big events in the future. So, the cobbling together of regional kshatras, that needs to be looked at in the future, and also just how does Prime Minister Narendra Modi intend to recapture the development agenda. This is all from me this week. I'll see you next week.